Good afternoon, folks, and welcome to the Oklahoma City Board of Adjustment meeting of August 5th, 2010. If you haven't already done so, please silence any cell phones or other noisemakers that you might have. A couple of housekeeping rules. If you would, when you come up to the podium, please state your name and address. Adjust the mic as needed so we can record your testimony for the record. If there's someone that is speaking in opposition, please approach the side podium, give us your name and address, and please always continue to address comments to the board, not between each other. So we'll start with approval of minutes.
Move to approve.
Second. You'll need to state the date of the meeting.
Yeah, you want to say the date? I was absent on one of those. So we've got 2 minutes to approve, the first being July 1st, 2010.
Move to approve.
Second.
And record your vote.
Oh.
Is it just a voice vote? Okay. Okay. Oh, so it is? Okay.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are these not working?
They don't have the name board, so we're not going to do it. We're going to voice vote today. Next will be approval of the minutes of July 26th.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
And I'm abstaining from July 1st. I was not here. So. Next item is continuance requests and withdrawals.
We have 3 continuance requests today. Item number 23, case number 13281 to September 16th. Item number 24, case number 13300 to September 2nd. Item 25, case number 13301 to September 2nd. Item number 26, case number 13277 is withdrawn, and item number 20, case number 13299 is also withdrawn.
Is there anybody here to want to protest one of the continuances or withdrawals? Is there a motion?
Move to approve as read.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? If you're here for any of those cases, they have been either withdrawn or continued, and I think there was maybe a question there. That has been withdrawn. It is no longer a case before us. So if you're here for item 20, item 23, 24, 25, or 26, they've either been continued or withdrawn. Thank you, and you're free to leave. Next item will be the consent docket.
We have 4 items on the consent docket today. Item number 1, case number 13278. Item number 2, case number 13282. Item number 3, case number 13284. And item number 4, case number 13287.
Is there anyone in attendance that had any objection to case 1, 2, or 3?
Move approval of the consent docket. Second.
A motion, second. All those all those who approve. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So cases 1, 2, and 3, and 4 have been approved. So again, if you're here for those cases, you're also free to leave. Next up are items requiring separate votes.
Item number 5, case number 13270, application for special exception of Arrowhead Energy to allow a saltwater disposal well located at 18910 Lily Drive.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Wayne Smith, 7011 North Robinson, here on behalf of the applicant, Arrowhead Energy. We had discussed this case at the previous meeting. Request had been made to have a groundwater expert present. I was in contact with Mr. John Harrington at the Association of Central Oklahoma Governments. He has written a letter, which I have copies for each member if so desired, but was unable to attend today because of a scheduling conflict. I've handed here bring you a little bit of information together. In that package, you'll find a map, smaller version of this one, that covers 9 square miles centered around this disposal well. The disposal well is located here in the southeast quarter of Section 9. Included in that batch of information is also the records from the Oklahoma Water Resources Board for all of the water wells, domestic, all uses water wells within this 9-section area. The larger dots that you see, these are oil and gas wells or are plugged-in abandoned wells. These smaller notations are the individual water wells. What you see in that blow-up section of the map, the closest water well of record to this injection well, proposed injection well, is 825 feet south. The construction techniques for disposal wells, which we've discussed, involved several steps of testing, several redundant measures to prevent contamination. One of the key things in this particular case is that the water that would be put into this well for disposal would be put into that well at no pressure on the surface, meaning that in oilfield terms it takes that water on a vacuum. The water will literally fall from the surface to the injection zone, which is about 6,300 feet from the surface. So under the state rules for permitting disposal wells, the Underground Injection Control Division of the Corporation Commission, there is a calculation known as the radius of endangerment. The radius of endangerment is a circle drawn around an injection well based on the injection pressure required to put the water into the well. And the reason it's called radius of endangerment is that depending on the pressure of injection as to what distance from that disposal well that you would, quote, endanger a potential surface water access point or a well. So in the case of a vacuum, that radius of endangerment falls to inches instead of feet. So what that means is that in this case, you'd have to go out just a few feet from the disposal well to have any danger of contaminating a surface water well. The material that's going to be disposed in this well will come from an adjoining well carried via pipeline, so there's no trucking, reduces the chances of spills, and it's a private enterprise. Arrowhead owns the producer as well as the disposal well. So in this case, we've pretty much eliminated the hazards to groundwater. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Did you say you had somebody here from the Garber Wellington?
The letter that's in that package is from John Harrington. He had a scheduling conflict today and was unable to attend in person, so he sent that letter in his absence.
How deep is this well going to be? What's the proposal depth?
Well, the well is already in existence as a producer. It's a non-commercial producer at this point. The injection zone is 6,300 feet from surface.
How long has that casing been in the hole?
Approximately 11 months. This is a fairly
new casing?
Yeah, it was new pipe. It's a well that was just drilled in 2009.
To the dry hole?
They tried to produce it, but it was uneconomic.
How many other disposal wells do we have in the Garber Wellington that you know of?
I'd have to research that, Mr. Allen, but there are several, yes. The Tinker unit that's referenced in the letter from Mr. Harrington is off of Southeast 59th and Post Road, and it involved a secondary recovery operation, or water flood as it's called. where water was put into the ground under pressure to try to repressurize the producing zone in order to enhance the recovery. That, too, falls into the Garber-Wellington area. I'd have to just research the number, but there are quite a few.
Why was this location chosen?
It is close proximity to the producer. The producer is also in Section 9, about 700 and some feet to the southeast of this location. Reduces the impact on transportation of the salt water from the producer to the injector. Arrowhead owns both wells, so it's a simple solution as to why.
What about, as mentioned in the letter, there might be a water sampling program undertaken or certainly recommended. What's the status of that?
We have already taken some samples and had those analyzed. We have no problem with establishing baseline analysis of water wells within a half mile.
So you've done that?
We've already taken those samples, yes.
Is that part of this package?
No, I can give you that information now.
Yeah, I think the city needs to receive that.
That goes in with the actual permit for disposal to the city, so it will be in the record of the oil and gas inspector. If you prefer, I can give it to the board also, but standard procedures put it with that application.
How pressured are you to get approval on this well?
Well, they're ready to begin disposal operations as soon as permitted. It costs several dollars per barrel to transport water to a licensed disposal. You also enhance the risk of spill on the surface when you're loading and unloading trucks, accidents on the road. You've got truck traffic. Going to this pipe disposal eliminates that truck traffic.
Did I not ask at the last board meeting to have the number of wells, disposal wells in the Garber-Wellington? Did I not ask that?
I don't recall hearing that, but that's possible.
Okay, I thought I did, but I may not have. I'm not comfortable with putting this well in the Garber-Wellington until I hear somebody stand up there and tell me that it's not going to affect well water. And I know, probably because of the recent things in the Gulf, it wasn't supposed to happen, but it did. Wow. And there's too many people, there's too many residents that depend on the Garber-Wellington and cities.
Well, let me give you a little piece of information on groundwater. Groundwater moves through rock at the rate of about 1 to 2 inches per year. And the closest water well of record to this disposal well is 825 feet away. It would take all of our lifetimes together, even if it was actively injected into the Garber-Wellington. What we have in this well is we will have 3 protective strings of steel pipe that prevent that water from reaching the Garber-Wellington sandstone. The Garber-Wellington is at somewhere between surface and 1,000 feet. We have a steel casing that extends below that depth that is sealed, impervious. Inside that steel casing is the production casing that was installed that goes to 6,500 feet deep. Inside that piece of steel casing is the tubing string that actually carries the disposal fluid to depth, and that material, that tubular, is lined with plastic. So you've got redundant levels of protection to prevent any contamination of that groundwater.
What's Arrowhead doing with its water production now?
It's being hauled to a commercial disposal.
I'm in the same court with Mr. Allen on this one. I would have to, my vote would be to oppose it. I just want to make that statement just for the board.
What happens, and I know this area is, in the past 3 or 4 years, have had several earthquakes in that area. That is more my concern than from that and getting contamination from that well. I'm just not comfortable, and I don't know if anybody can stand there and tell us that they guarantee that salt water will not get into the Garden of Wellington. I don't know whether anybody can do that or not.
Well, and there's a reason that no one would do that either, because what you need to know is that the fresh water that we call drinking water, that the state calls potable, exists on top due to the physical density differences between salt water and fresh water. The fresh water literally floats on top of salt water. When you go below in this area, about 1,400 feet, the only water that exists in the ground is salty. And that's true everywhere, not just in this part of the city. So to say that this well is the cause of the contamination would be very difficult if the well was had pressure integrity, meaning that the casings were intact, the pressure seals were intact, then you don't have a source for that. In the case of earthquakes, which the ones we've had are very minor, the only chance of salt water coming back to the surface like that would be from artesian pressures pushing the saline water to the surface, or an injection well that requires sufficient pressure at the surface to be able to force that water to come back to the surface. What you've got in the case of this west well is that the Wilcox zone is very low pressure. Any column of fluid that is placed above that zone will fall into that zone and has no place else to go. So that's an additional safety factor to prevent any type of contamination.
Had you explained that to the commissioners of the land office?
I did.
And they didn't accept that?
His remark was, this affects the property values. Now, I don't guess he realizes how many wells in the state of Oklahoma are on Commissioner of Land Office property that pay royalties directly to the state of Oklahoma. But that was his comment. What we're trying to do here is to prevent contamination. It's not in our best interest, obviously. And the best solution is to put that water back where it came from, and that's deep in the ground. The injection zone is over a mile deep. The handling of it is done with pipe that can, if you do have a leak in a pipe, you can see it. There are methods to maintain the integrity of those systems. It eliminates the trucking, which handling, when you're moving material from a tank to a truck and a truck back to a tank for disposal, you run the risk of a leak, a spill, etc. There can be accidents. The rate at which they are producing water on this producing well requires 3 truckloads, minimum of 3 semi-tractor trailer loads per day to be picked up off that site. So it eliminates at least 3 per day truck traffic off of Luther Road.
But the deal about a surface spill is that it can be cleaned up.
A surface spill can be cleaned up.
If you have contamination of a water zone, fresh water, then, you know, I think it'd be awfully hard to clean that up and to correct it.
It is. That's why we go to the extraordinary steps to provide the secondary, tertiary containment methods, monitoring, testing. The state requires, as does the city, that there be pressure integrity testing done on the well casings to establish that it will hold pressure, that it will not leak into the groundwater.
How long do you propose to operate this well if approved?
Ooh, that's a hard question to answer because of the productive rate of the offset well.
You're talking about 20 years or 30 or what?
I doubt that it would operate more than probably 10 or 12.
Isn't this a consideration in terms of the potential of contaminating something from every bit of oil and gas activity that goes on in Oklahoma, though? I mean, there's wells all over Oklahoma in rural areas that have people with wells around them, that operate for oil, they operate for gas, maybe salt water, that type of thing. So you got that everywhere, and if they've prepared for something that's much beyond what the probable scenario you're talking about is. You're talking about a scenario. If they were close, but as you're thousands of feet below even the bottom of what the aquifer is talking about,
And this
it seems like that's an abundance of caution with regards to how the thing is proposed to be installed.
One of the reasons why I'm more concerned about this is because, and this is probably 35 years ago, I had an aunt and uncle that had in Cotton County, that a disposal well, 6,000-foot disposal well, ruined their water well and all the water wells around within about 3/4 of a mile of that disposal well. And I know they probably do it a lot differently now than they did back then, but it can happen because I know of it happening. And that's what concerns me more than anything with the Garber Wellington, when that's one of the best aquifers we've got in the state.
I don't dispute the caution. There, as in the case of offshore recently, there are extenuating circumstances that are the cause of these occurrences. I think what you would find in the case of that particular instance, that the rules have changed significantly. The requirements for construction are significantly different. The requirements for operation are significantly different than they were 30 years ago. And with the litigious society that we have, oil and gas companies can't afford to allow a contamination to occur. Not in this state. They're not big like those drilling in the offshore areas. They don't have that kind of funding. So every effort is made to protect not only the surface but the underground aquifers as well. It might interest you to know, too, out here at the airport, Will Rogers Airport, is an active water flood where salt water is injected under pressure at the surface into a producing zone. The wells operate in the same fashion as a disposal well. The city of Mustang has multiple Garber Wellington supply wells located around the airport. They work in conjunction with each other. There is a monitoring, groundwater monitoring that is done. So it can be done, and it can be done safely.
The Garber Wellington, that's not the Garber Wellington out there.
Yes, sir, it is. The Garber Wellington sand extends hundreds and hundreds of square miles.
I understand that, but the last, in the Planning Commission, we had a meeting with this guy that's supposed to be the Garber Wellington expert, and if I'm not mistaken, the Garber Wellington pretty well stops about Sooner Road or somewhere along in there.
The surface outcrop, where it is seen on the surface of the ground, does stop around Sooner Road. Where the zone extends, it extends for miles and miles and miles underneath the ground.
I understand that. I'm not comfortable with voting to allow this well until I hear from, standing in front of us, the guy from the Garber Wellington that's supposed to be the expert. And I would also like to know how many disposal wells we have in that area right now, and why do you have to have this one and you couldn't use one of the other ones. And
Well, there's a simple answer to that one, Mr. Allen. We don't own another well.
okay, and you're paying to dump your disposed.
That's right. And it becomes, I know the board doesn't like to hear about economics, but in the case of the oil and gas industry, economics is what drives the industry. And in a situation where you are spending as much as $3 to a couple of $1,000s a day to haul water and dispose of it, when you own a well that is fully capable to handle injection and disposal of that magnitude, it's in your backyard, why would you take it somewhere else?
How many of your wells do you actually ship the water out, and how many of your wells do you
In this
inject
case,
back?
it'd just be one of each.
No, but I mean, in the wells that you are under your control, or your company, how many do you ship water out, and how many do you use that you actually inject back into the system?
Well, there's multiple. I mean, the wells are scattered all over the state of Oklahoma, and I just have to do some research to tell you that number, but it's, there's different areas of the state. There are licensed, commercial disposal wells all over the state of Oklahoma.
I think where the crux of my question might be going is how common is it to ship this salt water?
It's very common. It's very expensive, but it's very common. You'll see right here in almost downtown, there are a couple of commercial areas that have water trucked to them daily. You're better from a safety and a contamination avoidance standpoint to move that material within a pipeline, which is what was planned in this case.
We've seen what's happened with the Marcellus in Pennsylvania, and I know the characteristics of the formations and so on in the shale up there is quite different from what you're talking about doing here, but there's been mass contamination of water wells and water systems in that state. In fact, Pennsylvania, I believe now, is trying to stop all drilling, is my understanding.
Well, one of the
out of the concern that we're kind of talking about today.
Well, one of the major things that you need to consider when you talk about Pennsylvania that doesn't occur in the area of this well is that the age of the operations within the state of Pennsylvania started in the late 1800s. There are wells that have been drilled that no one knows about. When you have that situation, you do have the opportunity for contamination crossflow. It can happen. I don't, that's a given. But there's always a pathway. And you have to have a pathway for that material to move at the rates at which they move, because groundwater moves very slowly on its own. This west well out here in southeastern Oklahoma City has very little. There are 2 wells within a mile that are older than 5 years, 10 years. And they were drilled in the 1950s. But all of the rest of the wells in the area have sufficient casings to protect the groundwater. They were all installed according to modern procedures for protection. And that's one of the key differences between this and, say, Pennsylvania, for example, or even where I grew up in southern Oklahoma. You don't know how many old wells that were drilled without casings, that were plugged with a tree stump stuck in them. You just don't know. The wells in this part of the city, there are records. They've been researched, verified. You just don't have that cross-flow contamination potential.
I'll go back to, I think maybe the first question I had is about the commissioner's land office. And you explained all this to the fellow you talked to.
Yes.
And he still objected?
He said that his objection to it is property value. And I don't know, his stance on that. It's not my piece of property. I can't state why he would think that. But that was his comment to me. It was a primary concern that property values caused by a possible contamination, and I explained the whole deal on the contamination prevention as I've done here. and left it at that. I have not heard from him since that phone call a couple of months ago.
Would you be willing to continue until we can get the Garber-Wellington expert here, and you can find out how many wells presently are in Garber-Wellington?
We can certainly continue.
That'd be my motion.
Second.
Motion and a second to continue the meeting, or continue the case till the next meeting in September, which would be a month,
September 2nd.
September 2nd.
Okay.
We only meet once this month in August, so the next meeting is not until September 2nd.
All right. We can continue till then.
All those in favor? Aye.
Now,
Opposed?
Wayne, you'll obtain this expert, or what are we going to do on this? How's this expert going to show up?
I'd get him to come over. He agreed to come, but then he found out he had a scheduling conflict and could not be here today.
Well, that's this fellow, right? From the, I think we're talking about somebody else.
Yeah, you can also find out how old those present wells are through the Corporation Commission.
I have all of those records.
Okay.
Like I say, all of the wells that are in that area that are on that plat, other than 2 in Section 9 that were drilled in 1950, 53, they were all drilled from 1988 to present.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next item is item number 6, case number 13285, application for special exception of Cecilia Little to allow the continued use of a mobile home to serve as a temporary second dwelling to relieve a medical hardship located at 4101 Cherry Stone Road.
Hello there.
Hi.
I have a mobile home that was originally...
Just for the record, would you say your name and
Oh,
address?
Cecilia Little, 4101 Cherry Stone Road, Choctaw, Oklahoma. And I originally had the mobile home put out there for my parents. They had Alzheimer's. Well, they lived long enough before I started having problems with my knees. Right now, I have the age of about 80 years old, and they want to do complete knee surgery on both my knees. And so my son lives in the mobile home and takes care of my property because I live on 5 acres. And I also heat with wood in the winter, so he has to maintain the wood and bring the wood and stuff like that into me, and helps me with any repairs on the property and things like that. So I'd like to keep it out there because we live far away. You know, we closest like facilities of any kind are 7 miles away from us. So anyway, I want to...
Does this require documentation?
I
Require any documentation, any doctors?
And I think we've received
We
documents.
do have that?
Yes.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second
How long is that, for 3
3 years?
3 years.
3 years. Are you requesting?
3 years?
Yeah,
Okay.
3 years. 1 second. There's a motion and a second to approve the case. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? You are approved for 3 years. Thank you.
Item number 7, case number 13286, application for special exception of Bonnie Powell to allow the continued use of a mobile home to serve as a temporary second dwelling to relieve a medical hardship located at 10901 South Anderson Road.
I'm Charles Keir. I'm here. Bonnie Powell's my mother. I have been taking care of her for the last 5 years there with the trailer that's on there now, and she just got to have me there. She has got to have somebody there 24/7, and we can't. She will not go to a home, and she will not let anybody live in her home.
Any protests? Protests? Move
No,
approval.
that's fine.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
3 years?
3 years?
3 years.
3 years.
For a 3-year period. Thank you.
Item number 8, case number 13289, application for special exception of Carl Garner to allow the continued use of a mobile home to serve as a temporary second dwelling to relieve a medical hardship located at 12320 Julie Street.
I'm Carl Garner, and I've been living behind my son for several years, and my health has not improved in the last 20 years. just steadily going downhill. And I'd like to stay there for a while longer.
There's no protesters signed up, and we do have the documentation.
Move approval.
Second?
3 years.
Motion is second to approve for 3 years. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Nay.
Thanks, sir.
Sorry. That wasn't a nay from me. Good luck.
Item number 9, case number 13290, application for special exception of Betty Ritter to allow the continued use of a mobile home to serve as a temporary second dwelling to relieve a medical hardship located at 10017 South Peebly Road.
Todd Shanrock. I'm at 10019 South Peebly, and the request is for my mother-in-law's place at 17 because of her health and because of her age. Staying in close proximity to her is in her benefit, falls and such.
Again, no one signed up, and we do
You
have
feel lucky
documentation.
today? Motion to approve for 3 years.
Second. Put a motion and a second to approve the request for 3 years. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? You are approved. Good luck. Thank you.
Item number 10, case number 13292, application for special exception of Stephen Ladyhoff to allow the continued use of a mobile home to serve as a temporary second dwelling to relieve a medical hardship located at 12200 Southeast 44th Street.
Is anyone here to speak on behalf of this case? We do have
Have they
documentation.
presented the documents?
Yeah.
Okay. Move approval for 3 years.
Second?
Motion is second to approve the case for 3 years. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That's approved.
Item number 11, case number 13293, application for special exception of Judith Watts to allow the continued use of a mobile home to serve as a temporary second dwelling to relieve a medical hardship located at 17317 Southeast 134th Street.
Hi, I'm Judith Watts, 17317 Southeast 134th, and it's for my mother. She's already lived there 3 years, and we just need an extension, and she's needs help.
You came on a good day. We're on a roll here.
I see that. Pumped.
We have
Approval for 3 years.
Second. Motion is second to approve the application for another 3 years. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed?
Thank you.
You're approved. Good luck.
Item number 12, case number 13296, application for special exception of Johnny Fisher to allow the continued use of a mobile home to serve as a temporary second dwelling to relieve a medical hardship located at 3300 Noma Road.
Hi. I'm Treva Fisher, 3300 Noma Road. And we still need the trailer because my dad lives there. My daughter lives with him because in the last 3 years he's getting Alzheimer's, and sometimes he doesn't do everything quite like he should. So, and during the day he stays at my house most of the time, and he thinks that if we get rid of the trailer for him, then he can move back to his own trailer. And that's just not possible. If he doesn't have the trailer, then we're going to have to put him back in an old folks' home.
And Mr. Lucas does reside in the trailer?
Yes, with my daughter. My daughter lives there too with him, so she can take care of him at night, and my daughter-in-law takes care of him during the day.
Okay.
At our house. At our house.
Okay.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion is second to approve for additional 3 years. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? You are approved.
Thank you.
Item number 13, case number 13283, request of Capitol Hill Baptist Church for a variance to the maximum number of attached wall signs located at 304 Southwest 134th Street.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Dennis Fox. My health, as far as I know, is good. And
I heard it wasn't.
I've heard that too. It's a pleasure to appear before you. Pastors here, members of the building committee, architect, whatever questions you all have, we're ready to answer. But when you look at the handout that we gave you, I think, and you look at the back of your staff report, I think there's two things that are very important. Number one, when we look at the map that shows the church, the distance from one end to another is about 160 feet. And when you look at what we're wanting to put up, the letters plus the logo are about 92 square feet. So from a scale standpoint, we believe that it's appropriate. And when you look at the location of the church, what you find is we have some commercial uses that sit right on the front of the arterial street. We sit about 180 feet back from the street, so signage on the building we think is important. There is an existing sign that I showed you all that is an old sign that sits in the front, and that will be at some point replaced, but it'll have to go through the process of rezoning before it can be replaced. So we think that scale-wise it's appropriate. We're here to answer any questions, and we would ask for your approval.
So Dennis, the existing sign you do want to keep, and what is the size of that sign?
It is approximately 5 by 10, 50 feet. It looks smaller than that to me, but we looked at it, and it's 5 feet by 10 feet.
And the two new signs are approximately 100 square feet total?
They're 92 feet total.
Total, okay.
The one that has the logo is 54 feet, and the letters are 37 feet.
So that would be 3 signs when only one wall or freestanding is technically allowed in this district, correct? That you'll be...
Yeah, it's double A, and that's what's unusual. You know, when you look at double A sign regulations, they really don't contemplate whether it's commercial, office, or church kind of uses. And what they say is you can have 100 square feet, and that can be on your building, or it can be in a separate sign. So that's why we're here before you.
You can have more than one wall sign as long as it doesn't exceed 100 square feet total.
Okay.
It doesn't flash or go off and on or scroll or...
No, sir.
Or sell furniture.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second. A motion and a second to approve the application. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item number 14, case number 13288, request of Oklahoma City Public Schools for a variance to permit parking and maneuvering in the public right-of-way located at 2400 Northwest 36th Street.
Is the applicant present? Move to the back of the docket. Move it to the back of the docket and try to take it up at the end in case someone shows up.
Okay.
Yep.
Item number 15, case number 13291, request of Cable Real Estate for a variance to the approved signage conditions of SP 399 located at 4717 Northwest 39th Street.
Good afternoon. My name is Greg Cable, 4710 Northwest 39th. And what we're looking for is there's 2 large existing poles that were there from the existing owner. And when they left, they took basically the sign with them. The city has approved at one point a smaller sign on top of it, which it was done, and it's really out of proportion. And we changed the usage of it from where it used to be a large restaurant. They moved down the street. And in doing so, we needed to do the zoning because it was basically destroyed and gutted, and we had to redo the whole building and got that all approved. But they only approved a 8-foot monument sign at it, and we were looking at the existing poles and the sign that could be used, and I understand now we need to get hopefully a variance on that, and that's what we're asking for. The current sign looks kind of out of proportion, and I don't know if they provided you with the documents. I have copies if you need them, but there they are. So, I just asked it, give an approval and continue to do it. There's up and down the street, these signs are everywhere, really.
Who is it that negotiated with on the Planning Commission, and is that the prior owner that did that?
It's part of the special permit for the auto sales.
Huh?
It's part of the application for the special permit.
For the auto
sales lot, requires special permit.
Well, that went through the Planning Commission?
Yeah.
That went through the Planning Commission?
It did, and that was part of the agreement, is that it stayed with an 8-foot monument sign.
Oh.
And I don't think we want to mess with the Planning Commission's negotiations on that. And I'd make a motion to deny the application.
Yeah, if you made the deal, I think I got to second that.
That's fine. I mean, I can go back to the Planning Commission and ask.
I mean, I think that's that's just too obvious. It's too straightforward. If been a prior owner did it or something like that, it might have been something different. Okay.
Well, I had asked for some, the best way to do it, and we'll start here, and that's kind of what we did today.
There's a motion and a second to deny the application. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? It is denied.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Item number 16, case number 13294, request of Holly Smith for a variance to the required access to an approved street located at 7431 East Memorial Road.
Good afternoon. My name is Spencer Smith, and I'm here on behalf of the applicant, Holly Smith, my wife. We both live at 3400 Hickory Ridge, in Edmond, Oklahoma, 73013. And we've also got with us here today in support of our application Mike Bosley, Neil Ferguson, and their agent, David Lyde, who are sitting near my wife. And they are the buyers pursuant to a real estate and purchase contract that Holly has entered into to sell the subject 10.2 acres. And we are here seeking a variance from the requirement that no building permits be issued on any lot unless the street giving access is an approved street. As you can see from the packet that was submitted, the application, this is a landlocked piece of property. The access, the right of ingress and egress, is provided via a 30-foot utility and roadway easement that is along a southern 5.5-acre tract that is on East Memorial Road, east of I-35. And as set forth in our application, the reasons why we meet the requirements for the application to be granted, we think, are pretty clear. In particular, the unnecessary hardship caused by a denial of the variance would, among other things, prevent any owner from building on the 10.2-acre tract of land. There's lots of developments around this area. There's housing to the west. There's housing on the 5.5-acre tract to the south. And as you drive up and down East Memorial Road now, there's more and more development going on. So we feel that this would be consistent with the nature of the developments in that area, as well as being a condition peculiar to this 10.acre tract, which is, of course, the fact that it's landlocked and there is no right of ingress and egress on a public road, but we do have the recognized 30-foot easement. And one of the things that was noted in the staff report as an unfavorable consideration, actually the only unfavorable consideration, is that because the access would be by a private roadway or easement, any future problems would have to be litigated privately. And I would just note that approximately 2 years ago, pursuant to a quiet title action, the district court here in Oklahoma County recognized the validity of the easement and Holly Smith's ownership of that easement. And I've got a copy of the journal entry of judgment certified with me if that would assist in your consideration. The proposed buyers plan to build 2 houses on the 10-acre tract, split it evenly, so it's about 5.1 acre per tract, and we've got a detailed legal description which was attached as Exhibit 7 to the application, and I believe it's part of the packet that you have as well.
Can I look at that journal entry while you're continuing?
Absolutely.
Thanks.
JJ, what kind of a road will they have to build to access those 2 properties?
Private, there's no standard.
So gravel? Okay, in city garbage and fire protection and things like that, that's acceptable as far as that goes? Or will they have to bring their garbage down to Memorial Road, or how would that work?
They'll have to make arrangements for that. If the truck can't get up to get the garbage, they'll have to bring it down to Memorial Road.
So what about a fire truck getting up there?
You know, in the past on applications like this before, we've imposed the requirement to meet the city's code on a gravel road or whatever, and so you got to, it would be my opinion, you've got to at least have the standard of what the city requires for a gravel road for this drive, for that easement.
I'd make that acceptable to the fire marshal's office.
Yeah.
So that would be a requirement, that it would have to be accessible to an emergency vehicle then?
Make that a condition of the board order.
Spencer, did you get the direction that the conversation was going up here with?
Yeah, so if I understand the conversation, it's going to be a requirement in order for, and assuming we move forward with the sale and Mr. Bosley and Mr. Ferguson get the permits to build the 2 houses on the property, part of that will be a requirement that along that easement there's a roadway that meets the standards that Oklahoma City requires for emergency vehicles.
For gravel.
Okay.
Now, it's a compacted gravel. I think it's an aggregate.
6 inches or?
Yeah, 6 inches or more.
Do we have a motion or other questions?
And you understand that we can't address the issue with...
Sort of. I like to see the...
Sorry.
I'd like to see...
We can't guarantee access on that easement.
Understand.
Spencer, do you have a copy of the easement with you by chance? I'm trying to see if it's in a...
It appears that there was some kind of a quiet title action. The people say that the easement was abandoned in '04, so this action was filed to settle all of that. Let me have a minute to look at this easement and see if this is what the court's order addresses.
Yeah, and one thing I forgot to note in the summary packet and also on the agenda, the address that the 5.5 acres is on is actually not, it's 7401 East Memorial, and I believe the agenda listed it as a different address, similar, but there was a transposed number, I think the 3 for the 0.
Instead of 7431, 7401?
Yeah, let me make sure I've got that right. Yeah, it's 7401.
Does that
East
require
Memorial.
new notification?
So there'll be another...
We provided the notification for 7401 East Memorial.
Okay.
And that was the...
So there'll be another address assigned then to the other side?
Yeah, I'm not sure how that will work. I'm assuming that they'll have to get a different address.
Yeah, they'll have to have an address for each residence.
Yeah.
Probably plenty of space in between the addresses over there. So.
Yeah, and if you need any clarification on that action, I can provide it, because I've represented Holly in connection with that as well.
Yeah, okay.
The original easement was a recorded one, was it not? The 15-foot one?
It was originally it's a 30-foot easement. The owners of the 5.5 acres claimed it was abandoned, recorded a new easement that was identical to the 30-foot easement, but it was 15-foot. So that's why we instituted the quiet title action, and Judge Robertson found that it hadn't been abandoned and recognized its validity.
You think that was a write-o?
What's that?
You think it was just a mistake?
No, I think that's what they were thinking happened. So we were glad Judge Robertson saw it otherwise.
I think there may be an issue with what you're describing as addresses. So we'll have to...
The 7401 is the property in the front. That is the Emery's.
Correct.
That's 7401. And then the address in the back that we gave is 7431, which this application is. Now, there will be another address assigned for the other property that you're subdividing.
I understand. Okay. Yeah. Oh, and we didn't know that there was actually an address assigned to that 10.2 acres. So that's probably.
We assigned it when you came in.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
When you came in and filed the application.
I see.
It's when
Okay.
when the 10-acre
I
property
see.
was assigned.
Okay.
So they'll be cleared up when you split?
Yeah.
Other comments from Rita? Yeah, okay.
Does the easement look okay? Okay. I'd make a motion to approve with the stipulation that a road be built to Oklahoma City standards. And I assume that's crowned in the middle with bar ditches, 6 inches of compacted gravel. Is that correct?
I think what you want to say is a surface that's acceptable to the fire marshal, and we'll get the fire marshal.
Okay. Acceptable to the fire marshal then.
Second?
Motion and a second to approve the motion as amended by Mr. Allen. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? You are approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 17, case number 13295, request of Waste Management of Oklahoma for a variance to permit a 30-foot tall fabric fence located in the front side and rear yard, located at 6200 Northeast 36th Street.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Dennis Box and Keith Gibson, we're here on behalf of the applicants. Mr. Gibson's handing out an exhibit that will show the kind of fence that we want to put up. And we have an aerial that shows a better depiction than the map that you all have there. Because what we're dealing with is a scenario where we've had a landfill at this location for a number of years, and the city has a landfill that's been discontinued for a number of years just to the north. This type of fence we think will be very effective. It's used in other landfills, both in the state of Oklahoma and other states, in taking care of any kind of trash issues. As you might know from the staff report, we got a scenario where, based on the zoning, we could have an 8-foot tall fence, and that wouldn't do much good for anybody. When you have the opportunity to drive in the area, you find that we have other landfills in close proximity, and we really don't have any residential that would be impacted. So we'd ask for your approval. The staff report has indicated that there's no unfavorable, and we're here to answer whatever questions you all might have.
How are we going to maintain this fence? How are we going to keep all the papers down off the fence and stuff like that?
Who wants to answer that? Introduce yourself. And then.
Don Fletcher, 3201 Mosley Road for Waste Management. We typically have temporary help coming in whenever we need it, and we do have temporary help there every day. And as the wind blows, we have them actually pick it off the fence. This fence is designed where it'll probably blow up against it and then fall down to the bottom. And we'll have them pick it up with bags, then haul it back up to the working phase.
Okay, the ones that stick up 30 foot high, you're going to have a cherry picker? Are they going to climb the fence? Or
most of the time you can get it with a long pole.
Okay.
And we typically have actually got the extended poles with just little hooks on them, and you can grab and pull it right off of it.
Okay.
You take a blower and blow it back from the other side.
or wait till the wind comes the other direction.
This is going to come later, but I want you to realize that you've got an item coming up on the Planning Commission, the next Planning Commission meeting, and I don't think you've complied with all the things that you said you was going to do the last time you came to the Planning Commission. And I'm just this fence, that's a pretty good sized fence. And if that thing is going to be maintained rather than looking like a garbage dump, I think it's going to be useful. But if it's going to look like a garbage dump and it's not going to be maintained, then I want some kind of an assurance that that's going to be maintained and the papers are going to be off of it and so on and so forth, and holes are going to be fixed and droopy fences are going to be fixed and maintained.
Well, I can assure you that for sure. We're not required to put this fence up. Actually, it was my fault, I guess if you want to say it, that I wanted to put it up to keep all the blown trash off 36th Street. I think it'd be better for the neighbors and the people coming by there. It'd be easier to maintain, but we do intend to keep the fence maintained.
I agree, as long as it's maintained. And believe me, that's not in my Planning Commission ward, but it's in my city. And I will watch that just like I have the one down on 240 and Bryant. We've pretty well got that cleaned up. But we will discuss a little bit more in the Planning Commission next week when we have a Planning Commission meeting, okay?
Okay.
Other comments, questions?
You didn't move to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve the application. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? You are approved.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Item number 18, case number 13297, a request of Northwestern Associates for a variance to permit the removal of the sidewalk requirement located at 6714 Northwestern Avenue. We had one letter of protest, but it has been withdrawn.
I'm Craig May at 3020 Eagle Crest Road, Edmond, Oklahoma. I represent the owners of the building at 6714 Northwestern. We are renovating the existing facility that's there in order to allow an upscale restaurant that is being put in between. It's a collaboration between MidFirst and the owners of Johnny's Restaurant. The original plans for the landscape, as you can see here, this is the frontage on Western, this is the frontage on 67, included a sidewalk. We put in a sidewalk. There's no drainage, no sewage drainage on this side, no inlets in the area. Sidewalk was put in, was washed away by the storms. Any sidewalk that's put in the future, we feel like will be washed away again. We feel like that is a hardship on this property. We also, on Northwestern, is a 4-lane arterial, but there aren't any gutters, so any sidewalk that's going to be put in is going to be hazardous because the pedestrians are going to be right up next to the traffic on Western. I have a handout. I have an aerial, but it's kind of difficult to see. If I could hand you this. as you get this, the green arrow is just to the east of our property. The opposite side of the green arrow will be Western Avenue. This is really worthless because it doesn't let you see what you had in front of you. One of the concerns was that there would not be access letting pedestrians walk between the restaurants. As we said, it's very dangerous to walk in front of that building. The circular, I believe we've circled a brand new 36 parking lot in green on your page. It's actually to the northeast of the property, and that provides parking for the restaurant. There's also to the southeast of the facility, there are 2 parking lots that are owned by my clients as well. So all the parking is to the east of these restaurants, Earl's, Panera, the new restaurant, as well as Hideaway Pizza. So all the pedestrian traffic will come from the east. There's a corridor as well as a sidewalk that we've placed behind to the east of our building to allow access to let the pedestrians walk from restaurant to restaurant. I think that allowing us to not put the sidewalk in front will prevent the pedestrians from walking up there. We can also landscape it in a way that will allow the drainage to not be such a problem for the lot. Where this sidewalk would be, there was parking. I don't know if you're familiar with this area, but there was parking that actually backed out onto Western. We've removed that because of the hazardous nature of that parking and moved it to this new lot and to the back. So I think that the hardship on this variance is the unsafe nature of the sidewalk, as well as the lack of drainage because of no storm sewer drainage in the area. I think we've addressed the concerns of the staff report as well. One issue that was said was that it might be precedential to the area. I think by nature that this type of variance is having to look at the peculiarity of the piece of property, so I don't think we're asking for anything that be precedential, just specific to our property. One other point to note is up and down Western from 63rd all the way for a mile north, there is 3 sidewalks along there, and they're about 20 feet, and then there's about 450 feet, and then there's a 6-foot sidewalk, and then there's about 600 feet, and then there's a 3-foot sidewalk. And so it would be a sidewalk to nowhere in essence, but I think the drainage and the safety factor kind of rule the day more on our request. So we would request that we not have to put a sidewalk in.
You know, you actually already have the ADA ramps installed on either side of that.
We do. That is where we put the sidewalk that was washed away. The sidewalk was put in, and because of the lack of drainage on the street, that corner at 67th and Western floods. It's notorious for flooding because of it. And that sidewalk came in, and when the storms came in, it just completely washed it away, so we'll have to correct that and take out the portion of the sidewalk that's not washed away, which is only the entrance to the restaurant is on the south side. So all the ADA compliant will come in from that direction.
I, for one, would like to see sidewalks filled in these urban areas, not fill in the missing teeth, and as opposed to continuing to allow sidewalks not to be built. There's sidewalks starting at Mid-First Bank all the way up to 63rd, and you're right, it's gaps in between 63rd and Wilshire, but the new bank that went in was required to put sidewalks in. It's a shame Panera Bread did not, but that must have been before we had the ordinance. But
if you walk along that Western, I wouldn't allow my family to walk on this sidewalk because the traffic there, the gutters are literally this big, and so any cars that are going 45 miles an hour on Western, it proposes a extreme hazard to any pedestrians along there that aren't, and there's really no place for them to go because you're walking, in order to get to that sidewalk, you've got to walk through a parking lot on Hideaway, and then you walk on a sidewalk and it ends on 67th, and then through another parking lot. So and the difficult part is that without any inlet, I think the city would have to come in and put some sort of sewer drainage, or every time we put a sidewalk, it's going to get washed away because there is no drainage there at all. There's not any inlets. There's no storm sewers. The city has never put any on this east side of Western. So I don't
know how it's even feasible to put a sidewalk there and maintain it without any kind of sewer drainage. Now, if they did like they did down at Chartel and made it a one lane going each way with bicycles, tracks, I think that would work, but I don't know that that's, I think this is more the minimal way of protecting the citizens and dealing with the flooding problem that exists on that property.
I'm not sure I agree with the protecting the citizens thing, because a 6-inch curb, I mean, if a car is going 45 miles an hour, the curb doesn't mean anything anyway, you know. So you have that condition all over town. I mean, we have sidewalks that are built right up against the curb line in many, many areas around town. So, and I realize there's no curb line here, but if you look at even the aerial that you provided here, is that a person does have the ability to walk on a paved surface most of the way up and down Western here. They're substandard. They're not built to today's standards, but they are parking lots and that type of thing, and they can go up and down there. They cannot do that on the other side of the street, but they can walk up and down Western on that side of the street. And if you, this in essence provides kind of an impediment to that. By doing this, by not having a sidewalk, you can have a sidewalk that's away from the street area. You know?
Well, we did place a sidewalk and a walking corridor to the east side of the building. If you're walking through those parking lots that are right on Western, you're dodging traffic. I mean, that is people pulling directly off of Western into those restaurants.
I understand.
I don't
understand, but you run into that often, where you have driveways coming in and out of parking lots. People have to be, they have to be conscious of traffic and people driving in and out and that type of thing, but still, people still, we're trying to create a walkable city, and you have a situation where the east side of Western is walkable, and you're creating a situation which they would then have to walk across your grass, or else they would have to walk around your building to do that. For the rest of these, there's an opportunity to walk on a hard surface all the way up and down Western.
If you've ever walked up there, I don't know that I would say it's feasible for anybody to walk there.
I've run it and walked it and everything.
Yeah, and it's if you're walking from restaurant to restaurant, or if you're walking along there, it's not safe. I mean, you've got, instead of being driveways coming in, you've got the frontage, complete frontage, and so you've got cars turning in off a 35, 45 mile an hour road. Obviously not going to be paying attention to pedestrians, and pedestrians aren't going to be paying attention. So
well, I think it's that way at a street, and a pedestrian has to be conscious of that, and it's that way at every driveway. So I just don't think the safety factor is any different in this particular situation than it is. But here again, they've got a continuous line of being able to walk on a paved surface all the way up and down Eastern here, or Western, on the east side. And it just seems to me like you're creating an impediment to that.
Regardless of that, I think that the flooding issue, though, is more our problem. Is more the hardship with this case, because there's no inlet. There's no storm drainage. There's no way to maintain a sidewalk. As you can see, as you noted, we've already put a sidewalk in, and it was washed away by the rain because of the lack of storm drainage. So
you also hadn't finished landscaping that area out front. It was a work zone.
Yeah, you were under construction at the time.
You had erosion control going on.
You can create berms. You can put the sidewalk in such a way, and you can create a berm on the outside of it, and that'll redirect some of the water flow away from the sidewalks. So.
We've actually had somebody look at that. It would take, I don't know that landscaping itself is going to be able to prevent a wash away of that. It would take some quite engineering, as well as the city's assistance in the drainage of the inlet, in order to prevent that from happening. Whereas we just did landscape, we could have it run where the sidewalk would be onto the street and run out of off the property and away.
You can put drainage facilities into that sidewalk to take that water away. You're kind of uphill right there, is my recollection.
That sidewalk did have some drainage in it, and it still washed away is the difficult issue. And as you can see from the facility, that we've put a lot more into the facility than the normal restaurant would be, as well as taking the time to get it right, and we want to make sure it looks as nice as possible for the improvement of the area.
So-
Second.
There was a motion to deny. I have a feeling.
Can I make a request then? It sounds like that you've got some more concerns. I'd request that instead of denying the motion, that we continue it to the next hearing, allow us to look into the drainage issues, and maybe brief it for the board so that we can kind of address some of your concerns and see if we can come to some sort of...
Motion withdrawn.
Okay. There's been a request for continuance to the next meeting, September.
I'll move.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You are continued.
Item number 19, case number 13298, request of Randy Atherton for a variance to the paving, landscaping, screening, and sidewalk requirement located at 5725 South High Avenue.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Dennis Fox is handing out a packet of pictures, some of which are in staff report packet that you already received. Some are new, but these are indexed with tabs 1 through 4 to correspond to the 4 variance requests we are asking. My name is David Box, 522 Colcord Drive. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, Randy Atherton, who's also here with me today. And if it's all right, what I thought I would do is, since we have 4, handle them in the order that they are listed in the staff report, starting with the paving issue, or the hard surface paving issue. The ordinance to the paving, and that's going to be tab 1 in your pictures. Mr. Atherton's company runs a trucking business that has lots of large, heavy loads coming in and out on a daily basis. I'm going to let Mr. Atherton step up here and explain why the ordinance to this location will be a particular hardship. I'll have him do that this time.
My name is Randy Atherton, and I run Venture Transport at 5725 South High Avenue. And we are an oil field hauling company. It's frequent when we move our equipment that we do oversized, over-dimension loads. Our heaviest load that we do is around 160 to 180,000 pounds. We consistently run 90 to 120,000 pound trucks. Our facility is part of the old core lab, which is to the north, where they used to bring their concrete and break it up and leave it there in the yard, and we had it ground up and put in the yard. It gives us about a 2 foot of gravel base for our trucks so our trucks don't sink. The approach has also got that same benefit. Our problem is that as we began to look at the design of an approach that would allow us to have that kind of truck traffic, we didn't find a way that we could actually do it and stay within consistent with what the requirements are. We've been very fortunate for the last several years to use this ingress egress off of High Avenue very safely, and so we're asking for a variance for the hard surface paving for this approach. Do you have any questions?
Not at the moment.
As Randy said, this particular piece of property has several feet worth of crushed ground concrete to provide for a solid base. His trucks are extremely large with big loads, and putting a hard surface paving will really create a hardship. It'll require constant repair. Not only will it affect his business, but it'll affect flow of traffic on High Street because of the equipment trucks that'll have to come in on a regular basis to repair that. So we ask for a variance to that. The next variance that we are seeking is the variance to the landscaping requirement. We have an aerial here that shows the area, and as you can tell, this area is dominated by heavy industrial use. I-3 is common throughout. Across the street is a metal recycling plant, and as Randy mentioned, this property has the several feet of ground concrete underneath the surface. Therefore, any landscaping is going to be extremely difficult to maintain, and the area that you don't find that much landscaping, and that has something to do with it. But for this particular piece of property, the hardship is below the surface, you have all this ground concrete. Vegetation will be extremely difficult to maintain and to keep alive. The next variance is the residential screening variance. The subject property is bordered by 2 different R1 tracks, one to the north and one to the south. And that's going to be tab 3 on the pictures. And they're broken out. Tab 3A is going to be the tract to the south. The tract to the south is bordered by our property on all three sides, and as you see from the pictures, the first picture under 3A is going to be a look at the north fence line of the R1 property. As you can see, there's a 6-foot stockade fence with trees that provide a very nice buffer. The next picture will be a look at the west fence line. Same thing, stockade fence all along with very tall trees. The third picture will be the south fence line of the R1 tract. Stockade fence all the way down, several trees all the way down. So there was a comment in the staff report that it is bordered on three sides. We feel that we, with what's out there, have provided adequate screening and buffering from that R1 tract. The R1 tract to the north of our site, as you'll see will be 3B in the pictures, is currently filled with rubble and vacant. I believe in the staff report it mentions that the likelihood of that tract ever being developed for a residential use is extremely unlikely. And as you can tell from the area, this area doesn't lend itself to residential. And right now there's a chain link fence between our tract and the R1 tract. And finally, our last variance request is for sidewalks. This area, not only our property, but all the properties surrounding it, have very large trucks, lots of heavy equipment. On our property, on the high side, is a oil tank and battery with lots of heavy equipment, lots of trucks coming in and out. There are no sidewalks anywhere along High Street. High Street is mainly accessed by industrial users. There are no businesses in the area that generate pedestrian-type traffic. And if you've been out in the area, I think you'd agree that pedestrian traffic not only is not appropriate, but it would probably be dangerous because of the amount of huge, large trucks and the equipment that they're carrying. So we seek a variance of that as well. And I'm here to answer any questions on any of our four.
That was a very eloquent argument.
Too bad you're Dennis's son. I'm kidding.
I agree with all of it. I think it's a unique industrial area that warrants all of the variances.
I agree with that, but we're going to have to start somewhere. We're fixing, just south of there, we're fixing to completely redo that interchange there. It's already in progress. We've already started taking houses down, and at some point, we're going to have to do something with that whole area. If we don't, that's an appearance corridor. That's a front door, one of the front doors to Oklahoma City, and it's a pit, to put it lightly. And I agree that anything you put there is going to be bad. But where do we start trying to clean that area up? And I don't know. That's something that I don't know, and I don't know the answer to it. But we've got to start somewhere.
Any trees or anything? Or?
I'm sorry. At the planning commission, right?
Well, until something's rezoned there or something like that, there's not. Our hands are tied. So, I agree with all the variances, but we need to start somewhere. But I'm not sitting here telling you I'm the one that knows where.
I think cities are faced with certain areas. If they cluster real heavy industrial areas together, you're just faced with that, heavy usage of stuff that just doesn't warrant almost any other type of appurtenances or development activity around it. You just have to. I'd like the whole city to look.
Well, even High. High is almost a gravel road where he's talking about there. It's in such terrible shape.
Yeah.
It's and that's a city street.
It almost have to be to highway standards to stand up to all that stuff that's going on down there.
There's a tremendous amount of truck traffic on that road.
Mm-hmm.
with the screening already being in place around that house, they could either withdraw that portion of the variance, or you could just turn that.
Yeah, I wasn't requiring any screening. I wasn't saying that we should impose any screening on them.
Well, if you grant the variance to the screening, it doesn't have to be there around that house.
Right.
Take it down and...
Well, you're saying that meets the screening requirements already, and
it's screened now, they don't need a variance.
yeah, they don't need a variance to the R1
for that piece. Now,
Along
along the north,
our request
along
for
the
the
north
southern
makes
tract
sense.
of the R1 zoning.
Okay. I amend my motion based on withdrawing that portion, the southern tract.
southern tract of R1.
And Mr. Dunn, do you still second
I'll second that. Okay. It's modified.
There's a motion and a second to approve the application as modified with to the R1 track to the south. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you. That's all you.
Item number 20 was withdrawn. Item number 21, case number 13302, request of Right Agencies Worldwide for a variance to permit the erection of a freestanding sign within the street right-of-way located at 4917 North Portland Avenue.
Hello, my name is Jay Wright. My address is 4917 North Portland. We bought the building late fall. It was kind of a rundown building. We were expanding our business. Gutted the building, made it pretty, and we were trying to build the sign in line with the other signs in the area, which the neighbor to the south, 4911 North Portland, their sign, really we just want to mirror where their sign is located. And if we were forced to do the 50 feet from the center line, it would be into the parking lot of the building. So we're requesting a variance to be able to put it basically the same dimensions from Portland that all the neighbors have, maybe an older sign ordinance.
What do you think about the staff's comment about just eliminating a parking slot and putting the sign in that slot?
Parking is kind of limited in the area anyway. We have training classes every week, twice a week, and although one spot would be that big of a deal, but I wouldn't want to cause people to have to park across the street and walk across, Portland. And not to mention the cost.
The cost, what do you mean by that?
How much it costs to tear out the extra parking spot. But more than anything is the sign to the south side, the 4911 sign, is, it's 9 feet by 7 feet. It's 63 square feet. It has, such a big presence. It's, it's professionally done. And it's a nice sign, but it's so big that if mine was that far back, it would have zero visibility, and I probably wouldn't even build it.
Not very long ago, we had the same kind of an application right at I believe it's the office building straight across from the street.
49.
From you. We made them move them back into the parking lot.
If we eliminate that one parking, does it still meet the parking requirements?
I think it's pretty close on this. I know the site very well. I think parking's really tight on this side, particularly the way it's configured in there on the angle like that.
We also think it would be it would look more, what's the word?
Is it, JJ?
Look more uniform with the area to be in line.
How big is your building? How many square feet?
6,156 square feet. Single story.
So it needs about 31 parks.
So if we eliminate that one parking, would he be okay?
When we were doing fire code, because there was actually an arson in the property, and when we were rebuilding it to code and all that stuff and all the inspectors, it was a close call on parking. That's I don't know that it's exactly one spot or whatever, but it was a close call on parking.
If you look at the way required parking is supposed to be installed, I'm not even sure you can count a lot of these parks. Really, I mean, it's an existing condition.
Right. Yeah, but
With the, you know, the kind of access way you need and that kind of thing, I'm not even sure a lot of them meet that.
Yeah, and to make better, use of the parking lot, we actually had, tore out a part of the curb and all this stuff to make where, the bigger parking on the south side would still be connected with the front parking in front of the building that faces Portland, that faces that faces east. And, we made it a lot more drivable, a lot safer.
This one was on the market, and I remember looking at the site plan on here originally for a potential client at one point in time, not these folks, but somebody else. And I measured everything out. I actually physically measured it out, and it seemed like it was pretty tight on the parking deal.
It looks like it's right to the number.
I can't tell you exactly, but it'd be
real close.
Yeah.
So, AJ, why was the additional 17 feet of right-of-way donated when it was rezoned?
I'd like to add one thing as well, too, is we already went through the revocable process, and all of the companies, OG&E, all four companies gave their approval to it being built there.
Standard statutory right-of-way on a section line road is 33 feet. The current standard for the subdivision regulations is 50 feet. So whenever an application comes in for rezoning, we ask for that additional 17 feet to be donated to bring it up to the current standard of 50. So when this property was rezoned by a prior owner, we asked for the easement and they donated it.
So we could, if we approve it subject to the revocable permit, and if they had to, they'd have to remove it.
He'll have to get variance and a revocable permit to locate it in the right-of-way.
If they had to, then they'd have to remove the sign if it was...
Yeah, right. It's subject to being removed if we need it removed.
You make a motion? Yeah. Yeah, I'll approve it on that basis. Motion to approve on that basis. With a revocable subject to revocable permit.
Second. Motion and a second to approve the application, subject to a revocable permit being issued. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? You are approved.
Thank you.
Item number 22, case number 13280, appeal of Nikki Nabavizadeh of the decision of the Historic Preservation Commission regarding the denial of a certificate of appropriateness to install a brick sidewalk and install brick over the existing concrete steps located at 626 Northwest 19th Street.
Good afternoon. My name is Nikki Nabavizadeh, and this is my sister-in-law, Jessica, and we live at 626 Northwest 19th Street. We're here today to seek approval for basically keeping and finishing our sidewalk that goes from the city sidewalk to the front of our house. We'd like to help you guys understand why we want approval, and if you guys have any questions, please direct them to us. I'm not quite sure what all you guys may have on file, but I have support from 24 neighbors that that like the idea of us having this sidewalk there. Would you guys like to see it?
I think we have that actually. We have a complete record of the HP case, so we have everything with
Okay. And do you guys have a picture of what our sidewalk actually looks like right now?
We do.
You do? Okay. And if you can see in that picture, the neighbor right across from us has basically the same exact sidewalk as us. The way we got the idea to do this is we drove around the neighborhood and we tried to figure out what kind of sidewalk the neighborhood had been using, and that's how we came up with the idea for this. Because this house was, like a lot of the homes in Mesta Park, they're older houses, and what we did is we bought it and then revamped it. And one of the biggest eyesores of that house, especially from the outside, was this sidewalk. So we drove around, we tried to figure out what the neighborhood is doing, and that's how we came up with this idea.
Did you submit all these pictures to the Historic Preservation when you applied with them?
Yes.
They still denied it?
Yes, they still denied it.
And Karen Zimmer was signed up to speak.
Karen Zimmer, 226 Northwest 22nd Street. So I'm a resident of Mesta Park, and I'm also the vice chair of the HP Commission. I think you should have read the HP guidelines before you did what you did because it's expressly prohibited by the guidelines unless you previously have the brick there. So that is why the HP Commission denied it. The HP guidelines require the medium gray brushed concrete, and that's what she had under that brick, and that's why it was denied, and we ask that you keep it denied.
We do want to respect the rules of Mesta Park, and we are actually new to the historic neighborhood. We've never lived in a historic neighborhood before. So we definitely, we understand. We just asked if we can keep it because it does look nice. It does look historic. Other neighbors have it also. We did spend a lot of money in actually physical labor putting it in. We're going to have to spend a lot of money to take it out. So we're just asking, if we ever do anything else, we of course will always seek a permit, but we're just asking if we can keep it and not have to tear it out.
I also have something to add to that as well. I don't know if you guys have a copy of this as well, but we got someone at the Historical Preservation Office, a staff member. We pulled up houses from 15th Street to 19th Street that also that had the same sidewalks that we're placing, and there's about 31 homes that didn't have city approval. So that just kind of supports the fact that people just we just didn't know. So we'll be sure to respect those guidelines from now on. And if you guys would like to see this as well.
We do have that as well, yes, thank you.
Okay.
Unfortunately, sometimes new homeowners move into HP districts and they're not aware of the guidelines, and they do make errors. It's pretty clear that that is not allowed unless it was historically there. And HP has made people tear things up, and we have as well. We've supported that. I find the guidelines pretty clear in this particular case. Unfortunately, that it was.
What do we do? What do they do about these 30 people that do something? Wouldn't it be? Isn't it odd that would allow to be remain? If we've got people living in a neighborhood that are familiar with the guidelines, maybe you can address that. This has always seemed curious to me, is that people go out and do things, and then they're not cited for doing something improperly and asked to remove it. If we've got 30 people out there doing that, what is the...
There are 30, however many brick sidewalks there are. They have not been approved by the commission while I've been on the commission. I don't know how old they are. It kind of seems to me like if you want a brick sidewalk in a historic district, you got to buy a house that has a brick sidewalk already, because it's just not approvable by the HP guidelines.
The other thing about that is the people that already have them, perhaps no one offered a complaint about it. That could be one reason. Or we don't know how long they've been there. It could have been prior to the guidelines. So without looking at each one individually, we don't know how they were allowed to be and this one not. But, if a complaint was lodged, we would certainly have to look into each of those.
I just have a question. It may just be, I just don't understand how it works, but how do you know previously what is supposed to be there? Who knows, maybe the person that had that house before, the gravel pavement that was uneven and cracking and that my mom actually tripped on and had weeds growing out of it, how do you know that was actually what was there? The historic, because back in the day, I would imagine there would be stones that would just be placed there, or brick or something other than concrete or gravel that would be laid there. I just was kind of curious on how you actually define what is the historic.
There are photos sometimes. Sometimes there are neighbors who've been in the area for a long time who can say what was there, what wasn't there. And sometimes there's newspaper articles. There are a lot of different ways. Sometimes we just don't know what actually was historic. And then we go by what is historic to that particular district, what kinds of things are in that area, if we don't know about what's at that particular house. So there are a lot of factors, and that's why the Historic Preservation Officer, Catherine Montgomery over there, could be very helpful to you in determining what was at your house. And if you had any other projects, that's why a certificate of appropriateness the application starts the process where they work with you to determine what was there and what is appropriate for your particular house.
You said you remodeled your house. Was there anything else that required HP approval?
We actually remodeled the inside of our house, and we were waiting for this summer, because we spent quite a bit of money doing that last summer, to start doing outdoor.
So you've not had to seek any other approvals?
Yeah, the only thing we've done outdoors is paint, and we didn't need approval for that, so.
And we actually, our idea at the beginning was to have this sidewalk and then have the same antique bricks that we picked out to match the whole theme of Mesta Park. We also wanted to extend that sidewalk to steps and then continue with planters for the garden, but once we found out that a complaint was filed, we stopped. So every time we're watering the garden, there's still a reminder of like a little dirt area that has, a little trench that we dug, and like some concrete, that our process is still not done, and it just kind of just looks worse now. So.
Actually, we had a very similar case just last year, and we sustained the historic preservation folks on the decision made, and that applicant also was denied the improvement that was made. Sorry.
Okay. Well, if you guys are going to deny it, can we just go ahead and, rather than tear it up, can we just put concrete over it? Is that an okay way to go about handling this, rather than having to pay someone to rip it up?
We spent quite a bit of money, so we're trying to find a cost-effective way.
You should visit with Catherine Montgomery, and she can give you suggestions on how to bring it back into compliance. She's right over there on the front row. So that would be your best option in the event your appeal is denied.
I can sense you guys are trying to do the right thing, but unfortunately...
Yeah, we live like right next to the actual park, so we're revitalizing.
You guys have done great work revitalizing it, and as you continue forward in the process on outside improvements, Catherine and her staff can be of great help to you.
Okay.
And that's what they're there to do, is help.
All right, thanks.
Is there a motion?
Motion to deny, I'll uphold the HPC's decision.
Second.
There's a motion to deny the appeal, correct? Yeah.
Yes. The motion is to deny the appeal.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? It is denied. Good luck in the future, though. So no one is here for case 14.
Move approval. Move approval. There's no unfavorable consideration of that.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to approve case number 14. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Where's Mr.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We are adjourned.
Where's Mr. Woods?